This business is not a business that you could just come in and be like, I know everything.
Yeah, you don't clock in, clock out.
I always tell them what we do isn't rocket science. You don't have to be the smartest person in the world to do what I do, but you have to be honest. You have to be upfront. You have to be transparent. All of the qualities, those qualities that I'm looking for, you have to embody those. You're not going to get very far in this business if you're not those things. We want to look at our clients and really, really delve into what they're trying to do and help walk them through all of that as smoothly and easily as possible. Times are tough right now in our world with the rates where they are, the inventory levels where they are. There's not a lot of deals to go around. There's some tough times ahead. It's kind of like we need each other. Every good realtor has a good lender that they work with that they could call on a Sunday at 6 p.m. or on a Christmas Day or whatever. If you're not teachable in your line of work or in mine, you're not going to succeed.
Welcome to the podcast. I've got my buddy Sly here with me today. He's my go-to lender. I've used you personally for my own homes.
Yep.
I think you're one of the biggest lenders in the Midwest, or at least that's what I tell people.
Yep.
You know, whether you're humble or you want to share that or not. Yeah, I remember when I first started, it was just you and your assistant. Now It's like you and a whole team, which we'll talk about a little later. I can keep going over and over again, but welcome, Sly. And do me a favor, just tell us a little bit about yourself and whatever you want to share.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Elliot. Appreciate the vote of confidence and happy to work with you and your buyers. My name is Sly Marinka. I'm with Cross Country Mortgage. I'm a branch manager in Antioch. I have an office in McHenry and a satellite in Lindenhurst. We do have a whole team of mortgage professionals that get the job done and get it from point A to point B as efficiently as possible. We pride ourselves in service. We're always available. So, you know, we take care of clients, whether it's on nights, weekends. I've talked to Elliot before at 9 o'clock on a Sunday night. Love doing it. No problems there whatsoever. So real happy to partner with Elliot and his clients and look forward to our podcast.
What made you get started in the real estate lending space, if you will?
So total fluke. I had no idea what I was graduated. So I graduated from college in 2002. I had a finance degree. And my goal in life was to trade stocks.
Oh, really?
I loved Wall Street and really got into it during the dot-com phase in the late 90s, early 2000s. And I thought my path was cut out for me. I had applied for an internship with a company that did that. And then the dot-com bubble burst. And right when I'm getting out of college, all those jobs had dried up. So I was actually working at a ski and patio shop in Highland Park. That's still there, Williams Ski and Patio, great place. And a client came in and I helped her with her patio furniture needs. And she said, "You're going to come work for me." I was like, "What do you do?" And she said she did mortgages. So literally a fluke. I was recruited by one of the top loan officers in the country. She's still my mentor today. I talk to her almost every day. She works for Cross Country as well. Just really awesome lady. And she recruited me. I went in for an interview. I took the job and just hit the ground running. I got to learn from the best.
And what year was that?
So this would have been 2002.
2002, okay.
Yep, so 21 years.
Okay. You say .com, like, I just think of like somewhere in the late 90s, early 2000s.
Yep.
Right. I don't know too much about the .com boom, sadly, but I know what it was, but I don't know anything about it. Even the housing market crisis, I just watched The Big Short like 4 days ago.
Oh, yeah.
I knew about it, but I didn't know the details about it. So
yeah, we lived through that, man. Yeah, man. Yeah, the .com bubble was, all these .com stocks took off, and it was like the world, was ending because the markets were going crazy and everybody was making all this money. And then just like that, it just collapsed.
So then in your first year, if you don't, I don't know if you're willing to share this or not, how many loans did you process by yourself? Like, I know you run a team. I don't really know how that worked, but what did that look like on day one? And then fast forward to this year. Do you mind sharing how many you personally did? And then now you got your entire team on top of that. What does that look like? Just to give people a perspective of like how big your operation is.
Yeah, no problem. So year one was basically an assistant. I really didn't do my own production. It took a little while to get going.
I see.
But basically I was privy to all of the loans that Beth was doing, my mentor. So I got to sit in a cubicle with her side by side and literally listen to her, the way she talked to her clients, and then whatever it took to get the job done, I just whatever it took. So I would, regularly go meet with her clients. At that time, you didn't have to have a license. That was a difference. So anybody could do loans.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So there was no licensing requirements whatsoever, but I was just her assistant.
Gotcha.
Learning. And as I learned, I was at the age, I was, 22, 23 years old. And some of my buddies started wanting to buy homes. So I was able to take the knowledge I gained from her and her clients and help one buddy buy a house, then the next one, then the next one. And I realized it was something I really, really enjoyed doing. I enjoyed, helping these people because, like my buddies would go to their banks or whatever, and the banks would be like, oh, sorry, you don't have good credit or whatever. And I was able to figure out different programs and kind of walk them through that. And they're like, wow, this is really amazing. And they started referring me to their friends and guys at work. And so it really just kind of took off. So year one, as an assistant, I want to say I closed maybe 30 or 40 loans, which was still a lot for back then, but it was also refi boom time. Because that was the first time rates had come below 7% in a long time. So everybody needed to refinance. So I was able to help some of my parents' friends and help some of some other people with refis as well. And then I started sending out refinance mailers, and that's what really took off because the rates kept coming down. So I would get somebody at 6.75%. 6 months later, it'd be 6.25%. 6 months later, it'd be 5.5%. So I was really able to help a bunch of people kind of climb down and just continually better their situation, pay less interest, switch from 30 years to 15 years. So it was really a crazy time in our industry. I mean, I remember it felt like the boiler room. Like you'd walk in there and there's paper everywhere and people calling. And I mean, it was insane when I first started, but I got to learn. I got to see lots and lots of different scenarios. And, but one of the differences with the way I was taught was we always focused on the purchase business. So my mentor said, listen, refinances are great and we could do refinances as long as the rates are low, but what happens when the rates go up?
Right.
And so I've seen a lot of people come and go in this line of work that...
We're seeing that now, aren't we?
Absolutely. Right. People are dropping out of the business and getting jobs because there are no refis. So now it's just the purchase business and it's a different animal. There are two different types of deals. Obviously when you're refinancing, there's no attorneys involved. There's no realtors involved. It's just you and the client. On a purchase, you have to have a totally different mindset because we are working with real estate agents on the buyer side and the seller side. We're working with attorneys in Illinois, not in Wisconsin. We're working with title companies. It's just a little bit different, process. So basically, after working under Beth for about 2 years, it was time for me to kind of go on my own with her blessing. She was able to find an awesome assistant to take my spot, who's still with her today. She's amazing. But basically, it was time for me to go on my own, and I did, and I hit the ground running, and I would network, and I was that annoying kid that would just, relentless. I wouldn't take no for an answer. I got thrown out of real estate offices. I got... I knew I had nothing else to fall back on.
Right.
So
and that was a tough time, right? Because this was, that would have been 2012.
So this would have been 2002 till about 20. So in 2004 is kind of when I went on my own.
That's what I meant. Sorry. I'm thinking, you said you were 22. I just did the math on my age because we're like 10 years.
Yes.
It doesn't even feel like it.
Yep.
So then that was, okay. That was still when the...
Still going crazy.
Still
gangbusters.
Right.
Gangbusters. And it just kept getting, to go into the next phase, it was like... There were so many programs for anybody could get a loan back then. And it just kept getting crazier and crazier. We would literally have reps come into our office that would be, we're down to a 540 credit score with no money down and no income verification. And then 2 weeks later, a different one would come in and be like, well, we could do a 520 with, and we're just like, what is going on now? That part of the business, that was the whole, the crash was caused by these subprime mortgages that these investors were offering. And it was almost like, they were just racing to the bottom who could do the worst loan.
Right.
And I just remember thinking, man, this is nuts. Like these people, they're getting themselves into these situations. And we didn't do a lot of that in our area, but there was some. And I do remember thinking, man, this is crazy. This can't last. And then sure enough, '08 hit. And, again, talk about part of The Big Short. So the company I was working for at the time was one of the contributors to all of that.
Really?
Because I was American Home Mortgage. They went belly up, and they were part of causing some of that ruckus and packaging these loans into A-paper loans that really weren't A-paper loans. And so it was funny. My wife and I got her a job as well. So she was a processor for a while for Beth, the same lady. And I remember we were at Fat Man's watching volleyball. She was playing volleyball. And on the ticker, there was TVs up above. And on the ticker below, it must have been, whatever news channel or business channel or whatever, I saw a thing go by that said AHM Holdings files for bankruptcy. And I'm like, AHM Holdings, is that American Home Mortgage? Because that was the company we worked for.
Right.
And sure enough, I called Beth at the time, and she's like, dude, we have to find somewhere to go because they literally overnight shut down. The feds came in and they ran out of money, and the feds came in and shut the whole thing down. And
so you found out from TV before your company? Oh, geez.
Literally on a ticker watching my wife play volleyball.
That's
AHM
rough.
Holdings. So needless to say, that night she finished her game. We packed up. We went to get our personal things out of the office, and had to find another place to work. So both of us, but we were part of a big team. We were part of a good group that had a desirable business model where we were viable and we were going to still be around. So we kind of had our pick of where we would go.
That's good.
And we all found jobs. Literally the next day we were hired by one of the previous competitors, and we stayed there for a while. But yeah, it was crazy times. How many big lenders went out of business during that time, and we're not seeing that now per se, but there are some rumblings that some lenders are kind of on the rocks financially if they didn't cut their costs, if they didn't. Times are tough right now.
Right.
In our world with the rates where they are and the inventory levels where they are, there's not a lot of deals to go around. And if lenders on a grand scale didn't scale back, there's some tough times ahead. So we'll see where that leads and which lenders, kind of don't end up making it through this. But there are some rumblings in our industry. In fact, the company that I worked for, Finance of America, I was there for 11 years.
Yeah.
They got out of the mortgage business.
Oh, are you serious?
They got out of they're only doing reverse mortgages, not forward mortgages.
Gotcha.
So, that was the number 16 lender, I want to say, in volume in 2021, and they're not even doing loans anymore. Kind of sketchy. Yeah. So, but anywho, yeah. So, I worked, I went off on my own, and then basically during that time, from 04 to '08, I really concentrated on developing relationships with real estate agents. That's kind of how I was taught who I would go after. And it's kind of like we need each other. Right. Every good realtor has a good lender that they work with that they could call on a Sunday at 6 p.m. or on a Christmas Day or whatever. So I really focused on building relationships with people I wanted to work with, and just solidifying those. Then obviously the crash happened in '08, and those next couple of years were really, really rough. It reminds me a little bit of now, minus the bad loans. Volume dried up until the prices got so low that investors started coming in and scooping up these foreclosures. I remember, investors buying homes for $30,000, $40,000. Yeah. And I'm just like, holy cow, I can't believe the prices are that. That's just nuts. That's a car. That's,
yeah.
30 grand for a house. And I had investors that just started jumping in and buying them in bulk and working with investors on a lot of foreclosures. And then things kind of chilled out a little bit. Say around 2011, 2012, things kind of started getting back a little bit to what we were, used to. Not as gangbusters as it was before, but, started kind of leveling out a little bit. And then I just continued, working basically just myself and my assistant, Melissa. And then in 2019, I was approached by a friend basically that was kind of interested in getting involved in real estate. And I said, sure, come on in, I'll be happy to talk to you and show you kind of what real estate looks like. And he wanted to be a realtor, and I was going to put him in touch with another agent, but he wanted to meet with me first. And we did that. And in that conversation, he kind of realized that real estate is, so like I work on the weekends and the nights, but I do it from home.
Right.
Like I don't, like you guys, you're the ones. And that's why like I don't care when you call it, like I'm happy, you know, but I know you're the one that's out there on Sunday showing houses, on Saturday in the evenings. So once I kind of explained that to him, he's like, well, I'd rather just do what you do.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, well, let's look at what that looks like. And so that was my first loan officer hire. That I'd had other people previous that were corporate people that were on my team, but he was my first kind of like protege. And during that time, you know, it was just like so many people were looking for jobs. You know, so I just started scaling up and hiring good people that want to learn. This business is not a business that you could just come in and be like, I know everything.
Yeah, you don't clock in, clock out.
And I'm 21 years in, and I don't know most of it. I know a lot, but I don't know everything. Right. And I never will know everything. I'm always eager to learn new programs, guidelines changing, just different ways that the business works. Now with all this AI stuff coming in, we have to be students. Yeah. And so it's just tough. Like you in your world, things change. You got to adapt. And that's kind of where, you know, I've been able to kind of show people how I learned and what made my business take off and my success, and kind of have them duplicate that in their own realm, right? How they want to do it, you know? But the keys are, you have to be teachable. You know, we have all kinds of training all the time. We have all kinds of, you know, different things that we need to know to be successful. And if you're not teachable in your line of work or in mine, you're not going to succeed. And I have struck out on, you know, I've had a couple employees that didn't pan out for one reason or another. And I put a lot of time and effort into trying to, you know, help them and get them where they need to be. And, you know, sometimes it just doesn't work out.
That's a horrible feeling.
It is. It is.
Yeah. I hear it from Paige all the time at the salon. Yeah. She'll be 3 months into something and I'm like, yeah, that person, it's rare, but yeah, I see the heartbreak, right. You know, and I look at it, I don't know hair, but in your world, I can kind of relate. And I'm like, dude, that sucks. Yeah. 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 It's no fun. But you know, but for the few that didn't pan out, you know, I've built a team now where, you know, we have 8 loan officers that are doing okay. Doing good. A couple of them are superstars, rock stars, going to be, you know, long careers in the mortgage business, top producers, incomes, you know, skyrocketing. So, you know, those are the success stories. And, you know, I always tell them what we do isn't rocket science. You don't have to be the smartest person in the world to do what I do, but you have to be honest. You have to be upfront. You have to be transparent. All of the qualities that when I'm buying something from somebody, those qualities that I'm looking for, you have to embody those. And you have to be the same thing, because you're not going to get very far in this business if you're not those things. So, you know, critical to make sure people know what they're getting themselves into, to have a conversation that's not just numbers. And it's not like we want to look at our clients and really, really delve into what they're trying to do. Yeah. And help walk them through all of that as smoothly and easily as possible. And people don't do that in so many different spaces. I don't want to obviously badmouth anybody, but you know, the point is, I want to be able, like, if someone's coming into a team, right, they have to mesh, they have to fit in. And we worked very closely together, day in, day out. I rely on my people, they rely on me. If they call, I answer. If I call, they answer. But if you have someone that comes in with kind of like a different attitude where it's like me, mm-hmm. that throws a kink in everything for everybody. Well, even if it's not just me, there's people, for example, I worked with an attorney before, won't say who it is, real nice lady, but she's got a specific personality that I know I cannot put this type of personality to work with them together. Yep. This person's more stern. It's like, hey, listen, like, I'm just going to tell it to you transparently, but there's no chairside manner, right? But she's great. The assistant is such a like. I'm just like, listen, like you're not my go-to because your assistant's a nightmare, right? So, and it's like my feedback, you know, like, hey, listen, the attorney's cool, but I'm being pawned off to the assistant for certain conversations, and I don't like the vibe. and then it makes me look bad.
Yeah. So that's the whole key in building a good, a good operation is everybody understanding that the customer comes first, no matter what. In this space, you're my customer just as much as the client that's applying for the loan is my customer. So my people know that we treat our agents with utmost respect. We answer the call when they do call. We answer. We reply to emails right away. We're always pleasant. You work with Melissa quite a bit. She's She's my assistant and processor. She's been with me the longest. And one of the best things I like about her is how delicate she is with our clients.
Yeah.
I have had attorneys that have been so rude to her, and I want to jump in and be like, listen here, man, you're messing with the wrong chick, and she will just kill them with kindness. And because of that, she's gotten a reputation working for me or under me as one of the best in the business. And she truly is, but it's that bedside manner you're talking about. Right. She understands. Maybe someone's having a rough day. Okay, let's give them the benefit of the doubt.
I like that.
And she does that every single time. So
and it's your reputation on top of that too. So which makes sense. Well, let me ask you this real quick. Yeah. Like this whole thing just opened up to like 9 different questions.
Yep.
And if I ask you this question, we're not going to touch on any of this. So I bought a house with you, refinanced with you.
Yep.
For people watching this, what does that process look like? Because at the end of the day, I know how we work together behind the scenes.
Yep.
And I've only worked with you one time in the scenes, but I don't know if it's because we're buddy or just like we got such a good vibe that I don't know if I did what I was supposed to do or not supposed to do. I don't know what the true part of the process was and what was. I know Elliot. I know this is what he wants to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like with your whole team, what does that look like? John Doe comes in, I give you a referral, and I'm like, hey, listen, get pre-approved. What does that look like behind the scenes so people will actually understand? I need this, I need that, and here's why. Because what I do is I say, hey, listen, like call Sly. He's a great guy. His team's good. He'll take care of you. And then when I call a day later, hey, how was Sly? I know he's great, but my reputation's on the line just as much as yours. I just want to know, like, was it a good vibe? Was it not a good vibe? Oh, he's great. They took care of everything. Old sales tactic from me. Once I hear it's good, I'm like, great, I'll drop it. Let's move on. But even to this day, like when you talk about all this stuff, I have no clue what happens. And can you give us an insight of what that looks like? Or is that just your bread and butter and you don't want your competition to know?
No. There's no surprises. There's no secrets. And again, it's from my training in how to listen. So we listen to our clients. When someone calls, I try to get the big picture and I know what questions to ask to get as detailed of what we're trying to do, whether it's, if they're buying a house or even if they're refinancing. I want to understand what the client wants out of this. And typically in that scenario, you said, John Doe, you refer him to me. I'm going to have a very detailed conversation with him. I'm going to explain to him that, hey, we're going to be very thorough up front. I don't want any surprises. So some of the questions I might ask up front, you'll be like, well, that doesn't apply to me. Great. We're happy that it doesn't apply to you. But nevertheless, I've been doing this long enough to know that you can't leave any stone unturned.
Yep.
Because if you do that, that's the one time that something comes back. And the worst thing that in my space that can happen is I give you I tell you your buyer's good to go. I give you a pre-approval letter that has my name written on it. You go out there, you spend 3 weekends in a row showing them houses, get under contract, beat out all these other offers, and then it doesn't get to closing. I can't have that.
Right.
So I'm going to explain to the client up front that we're going to be extremely thorough. We have to gather your financial information. We're going to do a very deep dive into that. We're going to do a debt to income ratio analysis. We're going to run a credit report. We're going to go over that credit report. And by doing all of that up front, we're going to alleviate a lot of problems later. And clients like that. They're willing to, if you ask a client for something, they're willing to do it up front. What they don't like is if I don't ask all of these questions now, and then later on it comes up and they're like, well, why didn't you ask that from the beginning?
Yeah.
So that's why, and I train my loan officers and all of my employees to be extremely thorough up front. Now, can things happen? Yes. I've had clients lose jobs. I've had clients during the process lose jobs. I've had clients pass away during the process. I've had People decide we're going to get divorced during the process. I mean, you name it.
That's rough.
We've had these scenarios come up, so it's not always 100% foolproof. If someone loses their job, then they can't afford the payment anymore. I get it. That's life. It happens. I'm terribly sorry that it happened, but if we're doing our due diligence up front and being thorough, that's 99% of the time that's going to alleviate a lot of problems going forward. So we have that conversation. We do the work. We check their income. And especially in this day and age, it's so nice to be able to do everything electronically.
Yeah.
Dude. Before it would be like, oh, let me fax your, when I first started, it would be like, let me fax your HR department an employment form. Yeah. And it's like, good luck getting that thing back, within a week. Now we click a button usually, and a lot of big employers, not all of them, but a lot of big employers, within 10 seconds, I have their employment history, their start date, their exact pay, bonuses, commissions, all printed out on a nice form for me. So it's not a lot of extra work to do that. And then I could do my calculations and get the averages. And, because a lot of times what we find is people don't know how much money they make. Like, it's
we don't
nuts.
Know how much money we make.
They don't know how much. And it's like, let's get the, I'm not just going to take your word for it. I believe you, but I'm also going to do my due diligence and double check and make sure. So we're very thorough up front. Once we give you the green light, we turn that client back over to the realtor. Here's their pre-approval letter. But I also like to make sure that I work very closely with the agents that use us in that they don't always want a blanket pre-approval letter. They might want one specific for the offer that they're writing. So everybody has my cell phone number. I could do it right from my phone no matter where I'm at. My assistant's always available if I'm not for whatever reason. So that's one of the nice, things about working with us as well. And you've had it before too, where you need a pre-approval letter on a Sunday and they got pre-approved at their bank and the bank's not open.
You're right. Yeah. That's the worst.
Yeah. We don't roll like that, man. We just, whatever you need, we are here, able to get it to you, at a moment's notice. So once we have that pre-approval letter out, or we tell you what they're good for, you then take over and you do the hard part. My job is relatively easy, where I'm just making sure that everything lines up. Then you have to do the human part of it, which is find the house.
Right.
So, you take them out, you show them houses, and, hopefully they find something relatively quickly. They get under contract. Once they get that contract back, that's when they come to us. That's when we talk about locking in their interest rate, or if they want to float, they have that option as well. We send out the formal loan application with the parameters from the contract on it. They sign everything typically electronically. We do meet in person too. In fact, this week I had two clients that wanted to meet in person to fill out their paperwork because they weren't comfortable doing it via email. No problem whatsoever. Yeah, no problem whatsoever. One of them had an AOL email, by the way. So
that explains
I'm
a
like,
lot. Yep.
AOL hasn't been around for a while, but their email is still around. But so anywho, we get together, or we do it electronically. They sign everything, upload their documentation, or we gather their documentation, whatever is needed that needs to be updated. So for instance, if we got bank statements 2 months ago, those are no longer good. We need those updated. Pay stubs are only good for 30 days. So we'll need some updated documentation. We take that all, I send it over to my processor, Melissa, and that's when she does her thing and orders all the things that, all the additional reports and additional verifications we need behind the scenes. We get that over to our underwriter. That's the other awesome thing about working with like a team like ours, is we have our go-to underwriter. Regina's been with us since 2020, so 3 years now. And she reviews almost every one of our loans. And we have in fact, I was talking to her in the parking lot about a file before I walked in here. And not a lot of lenders have that. I remember I always wanted to aspire to do enough volume to have my own underwriter. That's like the holy grail, where it's like your stuff doesn't wait in line. It's not being underwritten in Florida or Arizona. It's like we have our own person. They look at them. I could call her and say, hey, this is a rush. This one has to close really quickly. Can we move it to the front of the line? She's willing to drop what she's doing for us.
So she's on your salary, like she's on your payroll?
She was when we were at Finance of America. Okay. Cross Country does it a little bit different. Okay. Cross Country is she's not. She's under corporate's payroll, but I have to pay a set dollar amount for every loan that she underwrites. Okay. That goes to corporate, though. That doesn't go to her.
Gotcha.
So they do it a little bit different. Every company's different. So at Finance of America, she was literally on my P&L, where I paid the salary, I paid the benefits. Here, it's done a little bit different. It's cheaper to do it that way. I would rather have it that way, but Cross Country doesn't allow that.
Okay.
So it is what it is, but she's still our dedicated underwriter. So I could pick up the phone right now and call her and say, hey, Regina, can you help me with this? And she's awesome. She's a fantastic underwriter, very, very smart, gets it done every single time. And I can't tell you how many times she saved the day where, something changes last minute and the client decides to go out and open a new credit card, or something comes up, or buy a car or whatever, something comes up last minute and they're sitting at the closing table or right before the closing, and it's got to go back to underwriting. Most places, guess what? You're not closing tomorrow. You're moving your closing back 3 days.
So real quick, like explain to me like I'm sick. Mm-hmm. You ever watch The Office?
Yep.
All right, explain it to me like I'm 5 or 6 or whatever Oscar says to Michael. Let's just say Chase, big bank, right?
Yep.
Would a company like that have their own underwriter?
So I worked at Bank of America before, so that's I can give you my experience in working at Bank of America. Yeah. When I worked at Bank of America, my loans would go into a processing queue. The processor could be in Dallas, Ohio, Texas. Okay. It could be in Delaware. Like, there was a queue, and the processor would grab it, and then the processor would send it to the underwriting team. Now, the underwriting team was either, at that time, it was Pensacola, Florida. I don't remember the other state it was in. Zero rapport with the underwriters. Like, we were not able to just call an underwriter and say, hey, this is what's going on with this file. It wasn't like that. Mm-hmm. It was basically, it would sit on in the underwriting queue. A human being would pick up the file, go through it, and my experience was if they found one little thing that they didn't like, close the file, send it back to processing.
Oh,
and then it would take 2 or 3 days for the processor to say, hey, Sly, they reviewed this file, but we're missing this, or they want an explanation on this. So then I would work with the client, get what they needed, send it back to the processor. It would sit on her desk for 2 or 3 days. Then it would go back to the underwriting queue. It would sit on their desk for 2 or 3 days. Potentially a different underwriter would pick up the loan and review it. And if they didn't like something, close it, put it back. Or in a lot of cases, they would approve it. But there was just so much time in between when I would send it in and we would get the approval that it wasn't a way to do business. I would like lose sleep over this because, I'd have a closing a week out and the file had been in underwriting for 3 weeks. And is it going to close? Is it not going to close? And my reputation is very important to me. If I say it's going to get done, I want to make sure that that happens. Right. And so my experience was it was very difficult. And I'm not knocking on Bank of America. That's just how they did it.
That's how they do it, yeah.
And there are some people that have great success working at Bank of America. For me, it wasn't a good fit.
So is that why they, like, let's just say them, or I've worked with Chase before, I've worked with a bunch of different people. Is that why they say they need 35 days or 40 days because of that lag time?
Typically, yeah.
That's what it is?
Yeah. Typically, their turn times are going to be, because they don't have that luxury, most of them. Now, don't get me wrong. There are some people at Chase that have their own underwriters. If they do enough volume, if they, turn in enough loans and it makes sense, I'm sure, there are situations where, you are going to have a good experience. Just for me, it wasn't. Gotcha. And even after I worked at Bank of America, I didn't do enough volume to have my own underwriter. But over time, I was able to develop relationships with certain people, at my company and get a little bit of preferential service. I started doing more volume and eventually got to the point where it made sense for us to have our own. And so we did. And oh man, it's just such a different experience. Knowing that I could call the person that's the one that's going to approve the loans. And I call her all the time about scenarios and different situations. And hey, how would you handle this? I have a client right now that broke his leg at work. He didn't work for 3 months. And so his year-to-date pay looks pretty sketchy compared to but he's also receiving workman's comp during that time. So it's like, I could scenarios and situations like that. I could call her before I ever pre-approve the borrower and say, hey, here's what happened. Here's what it looks like. Send me the pay stub, send me the work, and we have a calculation worksheet. She'll fill it out. She calls Fannie Mae for us. She calls Freddie Mac. She calls FHA. Whatever we need, she is like our partner.
I see.
And it's a totally different experience when you have that. And there are a lot of lenders that have that same thing. We're not the only ones. There are some good lenders in the area that have the same kind of setup and the same kind of situation. And it's just a different experience for their clients and our clients when, we can do that. We can make the quick call to the underwriter and get somebody that's, on the phone that's able to tell us exactly what we need to do to make it successful.
Yeah. It's funny because one time we did an FHA in, 8 days in summer of, was it 20 or 21? I don't remember. It was like July. I remember it was July. And the agent, I think, also owned the house. And it was a big red flag. There's no way you could do it in 8 days. I'm like, dude, call my guy. He'll tell you everything. So how do you handle that? Because it's like, it's too good to be true. And I've seen that on my end, just being a realtor. It's like agents will tell you what they want to hear. I just got done. I had to pull a contract. So I was like, hey, listen, we got multiple bids. Oh yeah, we'll give you this. We'll give you that. We're going to, pay the appraised different. It was too good to be true. Agent was great on the phone. Told me everything I wanted to hear. Second we get under contract, doesn't talk to the attorney of every conversation we had. Didn't talk to the lender. Wasted 2 weeks. Threw it out the window. Seller was pissed. I go, what happened? To the agent. She's like, I don't know. Did you communicate it with the lawyer? No, that's not my job. Like after, there's like that sense of liaisons wasn't there.
Right.
But those are things that I see. But on your end, when it's too good to be true, how do you combat that? Does that make sense? When people are so skeptical, how do you get around that?
Yeah. So, I mean, it is, the one thing we have going is my longevity. I've been doing this 21 years. So there's enough people now that know that we can get that done very quickly. And we work with a lot of top agents, and your word is valuable in situations like that because you're referring me. And, especially if you're working with people know that Elliot Lowe does business. People know that you close business. So if you tell them, hey, my guy says he can get it done. And then I also call, there are some times where people are like, there's no way that's impossible. And give us a shot. Listen, let us try. I promise you, we are going to do our best to make it happen. And most of the time they close 8 days, 10 days, 12 days, 15 days, whatever it is. We've kind of got that reputation now where we can get it done.
I've got deals because your name was on the contract.
I appreciate it, and that's part of doing a good job and being thorough, caring. I lose sleep if something's not right. If I have a client that's not happy for one reason or another, that hurts. Like I'm a weirdo like that, where it's like I will literally stay up at night and like lose sleep because whatever client's not happy, and I will always try to do whatever it takes to get them to that point. And it's gotten, I've literally given up commissions before.
Yeah.
Where it's
I was
like,
say that, but I didn't know if you wanted to share that. So.
It is what it is, man. I just. To last in any kind of customer service world, whether it's real estate, mortgages, whatever it is, you have to go the extra mile.
You gotta make it right.
You have to make it right. If there's something wrong, and I've had it before where I know I didn't do anything wrong. In fact, I remember one particular story where we always give our clients the choice. They get to pick their interest rate. I don't tell you what rate you're getting. Here are the options. Here's with 0 points. Here's if you want to do a buy down. Here's if you want to get a credit. We give them options. And some lenders don't do that. Some lenders just, give them the lower rate, but then they charge them all these extra fees to do that. And you can imagine it leaves a bad taste in the client's mouth later on when they find out, well, I was charged to get this rate. So we don't do that. So I always give the clients options. And I remember one time in particular that always kind of stands out. I had an elderly lady that, she told me what she wanted to do. I did it. She wanted the lower rate. I did it. I locked it in. We get to the closing, and I get a call from her attorney at the closing saying that I'm overcharging this lady. Sir, I'm not. That's not what we do. Here's what she wanted. Here's the rate she wanted. And we had proof, but in her mind, I was wrong. And
the attorney or the client?
The client. In her mind, I was ripping her off because she was elderly.
I hate that.
And it wasn't. That wasn't the case at all. But she felt that way, and she was upset. So I literally wrote a check. I put it in the mail. I sent her a note saying, hey, here's what happened. I didn't take advantage of you. You wanted the lower rate. That's why you were charged the extra. But just to show a sign of good faith that that's not the type of person, I will forego my commission. And I sent her a check.
Wow.
Never heard from her until about 3 years later when her son was buying a house. And would you imagine who she referred? She referred me to her son.
Wow.
And since that time, she's referred me to other people because even though I know I didn't do anything wrong. You don't last in this business or any business if you're taking advantage of people. People know that. They're not stupid.
Right.
I know when someone's trying to sell me something, you feel it. And so, that was just one of the times where I that hurt. I had to write a pretty big check, and I'm like, I did nothing wrong, and here I am. But guess what? It came back tenfold, because she realized that I was a good dude and I didn't screw her over, and she probably made a mistake. And it was funny too, because I had driven to her house in Chicago because no email, no nothing. I'd driven to her house 3 or 4 times to get paperwork. And
first class mail?
Yeah, well, I mean, it was a quick closing too. It was one of those where it's like, it's got to be done in 15 days. And it's all right, well, I'm driving to Chicago. So, but it was, like I said, it came back multiple times because I did the right thing, even though I didn't have to. I could have slept that night with that, knowing I didn't rip her off. She got a better deal. She wanted that. That was our conversation. But I made it right.
That's cool.
And it ended up coming back. So
then her son did the same thing to you. And
no, nothing like that. No, after that, it was smooth sailing. And over the years, she has referred other family members. And, it all works out. If you do right and you do good and you take care of people, good things happen.